Good afternoon, everyone. This is President Richard Atwater. Welcome to our teleconferencing Room Central meeting, and thank you for joining us. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we can begin with the roll call.
Gladly. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday. President Atwater.
Present.
Director Milbar.
Present.
Director Stamera.
President, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Vice President Palmer.
I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you. Director Martin.
Here.
Thank you. And Director Chang.
Here.
And Director Anapdawi.
Here.
Excellent. We have a quorum and everyone is present.
Great. Let's move on to agenda item 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. And please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we'd like to move on to agenda item 4, the public comment. This is public comment under agenda item 4 for items that are not on the agenda. If you wish to provide live public comment, we recommend that you submit a request through the link to the online request form noted on the agenda. Please make sure you submit the form by 2:15 today. In addition, anyone wishing to provide public comment during the meeting can do so by raising their hand function on the Ring Central platform. Those participating on phone, just press *9 and that'll raise the hand. With that, Claudia, have we received any public comments for agenda item 4?
President Atwater, we have not received any public comment requests at this time.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's move on to agenda item 5, approval of the minutes. We have 3 of them, and I'll go through each one of them. 5A, November 18th. Are there any edits or corrections that need to be made by members of the board?
Nope. Move we approve?
Second.
Okay. Well, why don't we just do one motion for all 3 minutes and the consent counter? Let me just, if it make it simpler.
Well, we should do
5B,
minutes, and then we should do consent calendar. Actually.
Yeah. And then 5B, December 16th. Does anybody have any edits or changes to those minutes? Hearing none. And then 5C, January 14th, the special board meeting last week. Any changes to those minutes?
Okay, I move we approve all 3 minutes on A, B, and C.
Great.
Martin,
right.
second.
Great. I'll ask Claudia to call the roll then.
Gladly. President Atwater.
Yes.
Director Millibar.
Yes.
Director Stamera.
Aye.
Director Palmer.
Yes.
Director Martin.
Yes.
Director Chang.
Yes.
And Director Anapdawi.
Yes.
Excellent. Minutes have been approved. Thank you.
Agenda item 6, the consent calendar, again, is our approving our resolution authorizing virtual board and committee meetings. We did this last week. We have to do it again. So is there a motion to approve that?
I move we approve?
Second.
Great. Claudia, go ahead and call the roll.
I'm sorry, President Atwater, I didn't catch who second.
I did.
Oh, thank you, Tony. All right, President Atwater,
Yes.
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Stamera,
Aye.
Director Palmer,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Yes.
and Director Anapdawi.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll move on to agenda item 7, the discussion items. The first one is 7A, the January DCA monthly report. I'll ask the staff to provide a presentation on that.
Thank you, President Atwater, and Claudia is navigating her way there now. Perfect. Thank you, Claudia. If we could just go to section 1, please, summary of work. I'll just review a couple items here, directors. So a fairly significant milestone on the engineering side. We did prepare our updated engineering project reports for both Central and Eastern Corridor, as well as the Bethany Reservoir alternative. This includes updates to the main narrative report, supporting technical memoranda, the GIS data that represents all the features, as well as the updated engineering drawings. We've been carrying various revisions and updates for quite some time, and so this now represents a fully conformed set of information that's currently still being updated as needed and as requested by DWR, but at this point we're starting with a fresh set, so a pretty significant milestone there. I think let's go ahead, Claudia, and skip over to the stakeholder engagement summary, please. And so I just wanted to mention a couple of things on this item. You'll hear more from Nasli as part of item 7C regarding the Stakeholder Engagement Committee. But at the same time, we've been continuing to focus on our outreach and engagement. Right now, we're really pushing a lot of information through various social media sites. And so our efforts are summarized down in the lower right-hand corner of the report. We've got some statistics and numbers there that I just wanted to highlight, really closing in on, or really having a lot of touch points there and a lot of good exposure within various social media venues. We've had a lot of video posts that have been played and various Facebook recognitions and a total daily reach for December of about 120,000. So we'll continue to push out new information on the engineering content and make sure that we're continuing to keep that information fresh and at the top of everyone's feed for those who are interested in the project. So Claudia, next slide, let's go to budget, the budget table 3. Yes, please. So we have, as a current budget, $23.5 million. We've currently committed about $17.5 million at this point. Everything is pretty much on schedule and on track. There's really not a lot to add to it at this point, although we will be touching on the current budget amount as part of the following item 7B of discussion. If there's any questions at this point about the monthly report, we'd be happy to answer, but I was intending to keep it kind of brief, President, unless there's any questions folks might have.
It's appropriate. Any questions from members of the board? Seeing none, do we have any public comments? Claudia, do you have any? Yeah.
We have not received any public comment requests.
Okay, so on all these staff presentations, just let me know if we do, but it sounds like nobody today. Yeah, great. Well, let's move on to 7B then. And that's, I don't know, Graham, who's going to make the presentation on the budget adjustment?
I will, President Allen.
Great.
I'll let Claudia catch up. She just needs to skip through the packet and get over to the board memo.
There you go.
Okay, so item 7B, if you recall, I just showed you a table that had a DCA budget of $23.5 million. And so the attached memo and resolution is summarizing a budget augmentation or revised budget of $24.48 million for the current fiscal year. This is based on final closeout for last fiscal year, FY 2021. We had a continued underrun of about 978,396. And so if you recall back in July, we rolled over an initial underrun of 2 million that took our budget from our starting budget of 21.5 million up to 23.5 million. And now with this current change being requested, the budget would be increased for the current fiscal year from 23.5 to 24.48 million. Claudia, if you wouldn't mind just jumping over to the budget summary table, or I'm sorry, let's go to the detailed table and then we'll come back to the summary. Yeah. So just to show where we would park this transfer for now, we intend to put it into the undefined allowance, and so you'll note there that well, I'll just go back as a bit of a reminder. when we started the fiscal year with 21.5, we had $0 included in the undefined allowance. So we had no buffer in our budget. When we moved the 2 million over in July, we put $1.25 million into the undefined allowance under the executive office task, and then we put $750,000 into an undefined allowance under one of the engineering tasks. So what you're seeing here doesn't show that 750 that's down there under engineering. So now with the current move of 978,396, that would push up our executive office undefined allowance to the value shown there that's highlighted in yellow. And then the total budget there at the top would be amended to 24,478,396. So if you could go back, please, Claudia, to the summary table. This just presents the revised budget in summary fashion, but you can see again the revisions are located within the PMO executive office, as well as and then they roll up to the overall total budget for the proposed amendment. So that is the summary that I have for this item, but there is a resolution for consideration by the board, but I'll stop here and see if there's any questions.
Great. Any members of the board have any questions about this amendment to the budget adjustment? Seeing no hands raised, I think we're good to go. Would you like to go ahead and have a motion on this item now, 7B?
Okay, I move we approve.
I'll second.
Great. So we have a motion and a second. I'll ask Claudia to call the roll.
President Atwater,
Yes?
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Estromera,
Aye.
Director Palmer,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Yes.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
So thank you. Motion passes by minute order. Thank you.
Great. We'll move on to agenda item 7C, which is entitled Adopt a Resolution to Sunset the Stakeholders Engagement Committee. Graham, are you going to introduce that, or is somebody else?
Nasli Parvizi, our outreach lead, is going to manage that. Our community engagement manager is going to walk us through this item. So Nasli, if you're on, please take it away.
Thanks, Graham. Hi, everybody. So we've discussed this over the last few months at the last board meeting. As you all know, we had our board meeting, our SEC meeting on December 8th, and the plan was to have that be the last meeting. Again, don't need to go too much over this. I think we went over why we thought it would be the right time to sunset. We've done the majority of the work. Vice President Sarah, I can't believe I'm blanking on your last name.
Palmer. Just Sarah's good. Sarah's good.
I was like, I know I call you Sarah, but I'm trying to be respectful here.
I know. It doesn't show the whole thing there. Just say, hey, Sarah. Okay,
I'm
I
so
got it.
sorry. My brain's mush right now. Anyway, Sarah, who's kindly chaired over the last couple of years, has spoken about this and may want to say a few more words. But the action I'm bringing to you all today on behalf of the DCA staff is to officially sunset the SEC. The DCA board approved the start of the SEC, and process-wise, it's now up to all of you to approve the sunsetting of it. We also discussed, which we thought was a great idea, the idea of having a white paper to kind of encapsulate the process of setting up the SEC, both to, as I said, to capture what we went through and sort of lessons learned, but to also kind of have a document that lives on in the future. We've said before that if a project is approved to move forward, we probably will want to start up a version or many versions of the SEC geared towards stakeholder feedback and stakeholder engagement as it pertains to what will then be a construction project. So we've attached a draft of that white paper. It is in draft form currently because we'd love to have the SEC opine on it. So that we'll do that after this meeting, send it out to them and get their opinions, and then we'll circulate a final draft again at the next board meeting So without further ado, Claudia, if you're okay scrolling down.
Actually, as a correction, Nasli, our plan would be to circulate it, finalize it, and we'll post it on our outward-facing website.
Thank you.
Now, one thing that I was wondering is in your summary here, it says it has as an attachment the SEC white paper, but it's not attached to my packet. Is that a mistake, or am I missing something, or what?
Sarah, the packet was redistributed prior to the meeting today, and it was also posted to the website.
Okay, so that was because my internet was down, so I
Yeah.
didn't get the latest and the greatest. Okay, thank you so much.
Sorry about that.
Let me go in and try to unload that.
Great. So unless there's any questions or comments, the recommended action is that the DCA board adopt a resolution to sunset the Delta Stakeholder Engagement Committee. And
Thank you, Nancy.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Vice President Palmer.
Oh, I move that we so approve this sunsetting.
Great. Do we have a second?
President Atwater,
Oh,
I
comment.
believe Director Martin has a comment, as well as Director Stamura.
Oh, great. I'm sorry, I didn't see any hands raised. Yeah, go ahead. Director Martin?
Thank you, Chair Atwater. First of all, we've been kept updated on this upcoming sunsetting of the DEC for a long time, and I do appreciate the staff going over and beyond to keep the board apprised of the direction we were headed in this regard. And I definitely will support the sunsetting motion. But I did want to thank, what do we call her now? Vice President Sarah?
Vice President Sarah, yeah, that's it.
President Sarah, Chair Palmer in our SEC world.
The SEC world
Okay.
is Chair Palmer.
Listen, Vice President, our Chair Palmer, put in so much work on this, and so did you, Nasli, and the rest of the staff that assisted in this effort. I tell you, I appreciate it very much. It certainly speaks very well for the board and the project and the effort we're making to keep the public communicated with the public on this. So I do thank you very much. And that's my comment.
Please.
Thank you, Director Gary.
I'll mention Vice Chair Barbara Keegan as well.
Absolutely.
Also, thank you all.
And,
Yeah,
and
obviously
may I say one other thing? I want to make sure we again acknowledge our former executive director, Catherine Mallon, for actually getting this thing going in the first place. That was it.
I think we all agree, as board members who were in the beginning, this was an initiative that we were really think was the right thing to do. And sunsetting it now is an appropriate time to do it, as we all chatted about it.
Yep. Josh, do you need to read the resolution, or are we okay moving forward with the?
We're okay moving forward with the motion whenever the board's ready.
Great.
Hold on.
Claudia?
Go ahead.
We do have a public comment request,
Okay.
President Atwater, and I
Okay.
believe Tony is still waiting to say a few words.
Great.
Sorry, Director Stamura.
Well, let's hear the public comment first, and then we'll ask Tony to comment.
Does that mean it's my turn?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Okay. OSHA Reserve, local agencies of the North Delta. Thanks for taking my comment. I was at the last SEC meeting and have attended all those. I think I haven't had a chance to review the white paper, so I will do so and provide comments on that if I have any. I do agree it's fine to summarize, what occurred in those meetings, and there was quite a bit of effort made to present, what I think was important information. I think where I am concerned as a representative of stakeholders in the Delta is that I'm very concerned about having the existence of the meetings and the input taken being used as some kind of evidence that, for instance, that the tunnel would be consistent with existing land uses in, say, a future proceeding at the Delta Stewardship Council or that kind of thing. So I had commented on that at the stakeholder meeting itself, and just kind of wanted to bring that sensitivity forth to this board as well. It's all fine and good to have the meetings, to take the input, but I think, none of the people who participated would want for it to be used against them later as some kind of evidence that their concerns were actually addressed. Certain improvements to the project were, probably made along the way. Part of my other concern with that is that although the stakeholder group was, kind of stylized as something that would be outside of the environmental review and CEQA mitigation process, I think that some of the things that occurred in there probably would be required under CEQA as feasible mitigation to lessen significant impacts on the environment. So that's just, I think an area that we're kind of looking at with some skepticism. And so I think as long as the Delta Conveyance Authority is, kind of careful in how that it discusses the stakeholder work, I think it's fine. But just, as was stated multiple times during those stakeholder meetings, most of the people who participated, left that meeting still not agreeing that the tunnel is the right project for the Delta, or that there was any way to really mitigate the extremely huge impacts on Delta communities and the environment. That being said, I think there were certain positive things that came out of the process. So I guess I'm just looking to make sure that everyone kind of stays between the lines in the way that the process is described. Thanks.
I appreciate those public comments. And Director Tony, do you have a?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I just wanted to take the opportunity once again to thank Chair Palmer and Vice Chair Keegan for their leadership, and of course, all of the members of the committee who actively participated in the process. You all did well for the community there, and I also want to assure the community that we as a board will make sure that they can participate, and we'll definitely actively participate in the impact, community impacts review following the CEQA process itself. When we get into the actual design and construction, that we will make sure that the community will be involved. So thank you all very much for participating and for your leadership, Sarah and Barbara.
Great. And on behalf of the whole board, I think we really appreciate both the public input and also the efforts of our directors in providing the leadership at these meetings. Director Palmer?
Yeah, I just had one other comment. I mean, we did have the SEC members who were there, but I also want to acknowledge that we had several members of the public who consistently showed up and gave their opinions, and that was important for us to hear too. Whether they were for us or against us, they were there, and that shows a great deal of dedication on their part.
Very good. Well, we have this proposed resolution. Do we have a motion and a second? Claudia?
Director Chang also has a comment.
Director Chang.
Yeah, I apologize, President Atwater, for prolonging the discussion at the risk of sounding repetitive. I also wanted to thank all the staff and members and the tireless volunteers who committed so much time into the effort. And I realize it may not seemingly be a completely perfect process, but I think there is some respect for trying to listen to the needs of the community. And I do agree with the fact that, I think the input that was provided is valuable. And I think the directors, I just wanted to reemphasize, I think some of the points that were made by my fellow directors, which is, I think, those kind of, comments will be taken to heart, I think, as we proceed, with this process. So again, appreciate the opportunity to comment and also to acknowledge the efforts of everybody involved. Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you for those comments. They're very helpful. Any other comments from the members of the board?
Oh, I am so sorry. I have yet another comment. I really wanted to thank, because it wasn't really put in here, Nasli for her diplomacy with all of us, and also Valerie Martinez for really, helping to set things up and facilitate, and other board members, and also Carrie Buckman for coming along and sometimes feeling like being thrown under the bus. I know that, but she was a trooper on all of this. So just wanted to acknowledge them.
Thanks, Vice President Chair Palmer.
Very good. Any other comments from any of the members of the board? And I assume, is there any other public comments?
President Atwater, at this time, we have not received any other comment requests.
Okay, then I'm looking for a motion to adopt the resolution to sunset.
I move we approve the sunsetting.
And who would like to make a second?
I will give you a second. Okay, go ahead. Either one.
Yeah. The challenge with what we have here is we're not using the raised hand feature, so I don't see anybody raising their hand to make a second. But Director Martin, you spoke up. You're the second. So we have a motion and a second.
Yeah. No, my hand's down, I think.
Oh, I know. It's you think this is tough with a 30-member board at Met. We definitely have to use the hand raise feature.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have chaos.
All right. Are we ready to do a roll call?
Please do.
All right. President Atwater.
Yes.
Director Millibar.
Yes.
Director Estromera.
Aye. By the way, there's no hand raise feature here where we have the agenda up, I think.
That's exactly right. You can't see it. Yeah. It's something we'll have to think about in the future. Well, maybe you raise your hand like this. You could do that, and I'll see your picture. But actually, I can't see.
Director Atwater, it actually exists if you hit your participant button where you see participants. If you hit that, if you go to, it will pop up on the right-hand side, and you can click raise hand in the bottom. Sorry.
Yeah, you can, but it only shows 4 people, so you have to keep.
Oh, you have to keep scrolling to see the rest. But we can monitor for you, I'm sure.
You need another computer screen to keep track of who's raising their hand.
Get it down.
But
We'll help you a little bit with Claudia, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. She's tracking it for me.
No.
That's why I have a command center here.
I'll look it too.
You do need multiple screens.
Yes.
So
Look at that.
continuing with the roll call, Director Palmer.
Yes.
Director Martin.
Yes.
Director Chang.
Yes.
And Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Resolution is passed unanimously.
All right, thank you, Claudia. We'll move on to 7D, and that's the adopt a resolution to award geotechnical exploration and reporting services contract. Graham, are you going to present that or somebody else?
I will introduce Mike Wolfelstad. He's our procurement manager with the DCA. So I believe Mike has a presentation. So Mike, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, Graham. Yeah, could you scroll down to the presentation, Claudia?
Yep, give me 1 second.
And just start on the next page. So as part of the project, the DCA is determined it requires the services of a professional consultant for geotechnical exploration, testing, and reporting services during the permitting and planning stage phase. And this is to assist the DCA with subsurface exploration, laboratory testing of rock, soil, and water samples, and preparing geotechnical data reports, or GDRs. Next slide, please. And I just want to summarize for you the process that we followed in procuring and selecting these services for geotechnical and exploration and reporting. We issued a request for qualifications via our website and our e-builder system. In the RFQ, we had a schedule and followed that very closely. We issued it on October 1st. Statements of qualification were received from firms on November 5th. They were evaluated between November 8th and 19th, and a short list was determined on the 19th of November, and then we conducted interviews, or the evaluation committee conducted interviews and presentations with those shortlisted firms on December 8th and the 14th. Next slide, please. So the selection criteria in the RFQ involved firm qualifications and experience, the personnel performance and experience, a technical understanding of the project, the SBE, DVBE participation, and cost evaluation. We received SOQs from 3 firms, AECOM Technical Services, Inc., Blackburn Consulting, Inc., and Fugro Land USA. Next slide, please. Upon receiving the SOQs, staff goes through and reviews those for compliance with the requirements in the RFQ, basically a pass-fail type analysis, and all were deemed responsive. Staff checked references that were provided by each respondent, and all were returned that we received were returned with favorable responses as to all 3 firms. We established an evaluation committee of 4 members. They reviewed the SOQs and met and scored each SOQ, and then compiled the scores and ranked them from highest to lowest and selected a short list of 2 top firms. The evaluation committee then invited these to interview and scored the interview, and then combined the scores of the interview and the SOQ evaluation for a total combined score. And based on that selection process, the evaluation committee recommends that the board entertain an award to the highest ranked firm, which is AECOM Technical Services, Inc.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Any questions? Okay.
Just want to go over what the contract, I want to summarize what the contract might look like.
Great.
The scope of services involves, like I said, the geotechnical field exploration and lab services, CPT soundings, soil borings, testing, and lab tests, and finally a final geotechnical data report. Next slide, please. The contract term is for 3 years, from January 2022 to January 2025. The proposed value is a not to exceed of $30 million. And this is a task order based agreement, and spending is managed via the issuance of those task orders that is consistent with board adopted budgets. We anticipate that multiple task orders can be issued each year based on the DCA's needs for exploration, planning, and access. Next slide, please. This is a general summary of what we expect the budgets to look like. This first year will be 4.5 million, 10 million the next year, and 10 million the next year, and then 5.5 the final year. Next slide, please. Based on that, we recommend that the board authorize the executive director to execute a 3-year professional service agreement with AECOM to provide geotechnical exploration and reporting services for the contract sum of not to exceed $30 million for the period January 22 through January 2025. All spending, like I said, would be managed via issuance of task orders consistent with board adopted budgets. Also, to authorize the executive director to negotiate a fiscal year 2021-22 task order with AECom for the remainder of this term through June of 2022, and then make necessary CEQA findings as a responsible agency. If you have any questions.
Yes, when would you expect them, if it was approved today, when would AECom Technical Services get the first task order to start?
Did we lose Mike?
I don't know, maybe he clicked off. Yeah. Well,
Not see him present.
all I was just curious, Graham, is I assume that if you authorize the task order, they get started sometime in the next month or so? I don't know.
We will, yeah, that's our next step, is to negotiate the task order, and then we will begin the planning and gearing up for potential investigations this spring. So
Yeah.
I expect to negotiate and award a task order relatively soon, and then we'll start gearing up.
Great. Any other questions from members of the board?
I do see a couple from the board. I saw Adnan and Vice President Palmer.
Great.
Thanks, President Atwater. Just a quick question. Is part of this action, would staff be coming back to the board for subsequent task orders as part of this? Or is that to be managed by staff under this not to exceed amount?
So Josh, I'll weigh in first, and then you jump in too. So we have an authorized budget already established, a line item within the fiscal year, the current fiscal year budget, 21-22 budget for this service, for geotechnical exploration and reporting services. So this authorization would allow me to issue that task order. We wouldn't have to come back and seek authorization to execute that. Is that correct, Josh?
That's correct. But to Graham's point, there would be budget control through the board approval of the annual budget for the geotechnical line item.
Okay, thanks. I just asked because the recommended action includes and developing the task order for this fiscal year. So I was just curious if we would see that again in the future for future fiscal years, but sounds like that's not the case.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
So, Director Atwater, I did have my hands up.
I just was going to call on you.
I put it up to see if you can see me.
Yeah, and then go on the other screen. So, you're going bouncing back and forth. But go ahead, Katana.
So for clarity, and going back to the same question, we do have the budget already in the budget. So they're only approving the task order, but the dollars have already been approved for this specific line item, correct?
That's correct.
So, but for subsequent coming years, there is no budget. We are approving this. Are we putting contingent budget, or are we approving it and we have to fund it no matter what?
It'll go ahead, Josh. I see you shaking.
Yeah, no, there's no firm commitments for future years. The contract's just a not to exceed and depends on future budget appropriation. And
so it does say that. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So it will still, that means each budget you will propose every budget, and then this will be included. And if we pass it, we pass it. If we don't, then those dollars might not be available.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
The summary, Katano, that Mike gave about potential fiscal year, but was just a sort of a maximum potential. That's just how we arrived at a reasonably conservative, not to exceed $30 million amount.
Got it.
Yeah. Now, yeah, Director Palmer.
Yeah. Now, since this is like by task order, if we should see some kind of a pullback where things really, worst case scenario, really get pulled back in terms of timelines and that type of a thing, can this budget be somewhat under $30 million? I mean, could you foresee that as well?
It's possible. Yeah, it is.
Okay, so it's up to 30 million, but if by task order, we're not able to do as many tasks as we thought we should be able to do, then it wouldn't be as much. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is by managing by task orders, you can adjust and schedule, and of course, tracking with the budget, you can carefully manage the process, because it may, over the next couple of years, there's certainly going to be probably some changes to the scope of work. Very good. Any other questions from members of the board or staff or anything else?
I see a question from Director Martin.
Dr. Martin, please.
Thank you, President Atwater. Following up on the questions about the coming back to the board for approval of task orders. Obviously, we're not going to do that, but I trust that the progress on this work will appear in the monthly report. And if it can be linked into a task order with a description and a narrative, that would be very helpful. Let us know how the work is going.
Yeah.
Can do.
Good suggestion. Yeah. Excellent suggestion. Great. Any other comments?
Claudia.
Yeah, President Atwater, we do have a public comment request from OSHA Reserve.
Okay. OSHA, please, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, President Atwater. OSHA Reserve, local agencies of the North Delta. With respect to this agenda item, I just wanted to point out that the staff report or board memo does not disclose that the environmental review that staff is saying that you would rely on in approving this contract is in litigation. The mitigated negative declaration was challenged in August of 2020 in Sacramento Superior Court. And then later an amended complaint was filed in March of 2021 that pulls in the addendum. And under California Environmental Quality Act, because it's a short form environmental review, plaintiffs, including Central Delta Water Agency, South Delta Water Agency, and local agencies of the North Delta are arguing that there are potentially significant impacts of these geotechnical exploration activities at the project level, as well as at the cumulative level. And for those of you who have been around a while will recall that the draft environmental impact report last time around for the failed 2-tunnel project also included review of the geotechnical explorations. And I expect that the new single tunnel EIR would probably do the same. So I don't know when this matter will go before the court. We haven't completed briefing yet. The record is just getting completed, but I think that it would be important for your board to know that the environmental documents upon which you are relying are being challenged. There are various, bases for the challenge, and I'm sure we'll be, describing all that in detail when we have a chance to brief it. But these environmental documents, as far as the plaintiffs are concerned, are inadequate to adequately review this. And I think one of the main concerns we have is that it's piecemealing the environmental review and trying to separate out review of the exploration activities for the tunnel from the actual construction and operation of the tunnel. And we think under Environmental Quality Act, those need to be reviewed together. So that's, will all come to pass later in Sacramento Superior Court. And then I should also point out, which you're, I think, aware, that the actual access onto the properties that would be required for much of this exploration also is in court, in a different court, in a coordinated proceeding in San Joaquin County, because most of the property owners, I don't know if it's most, many of the property owners have not agreed to allow Department of Water Resources onto their property. And so there are access proceedings in order to allow for those temporary entry permits if the court should order it. So I just wanted you all to be aware that this is a very contentious item.
Thank you.
President Atwater, just briefly, Ms. Meserve is absolutely correct, and we're all very aware of the litigation that's ongoing. And of course, if for some reason, if for something that litigation prevents or otherwise affects us from moving forward, we'll return to the board. As the board's aware, all geotechnical work is done under the direction of DWR. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other? I'll look, any raised hands, any other comments from the board? I'm looking for a motion to approve
I move we approve.
and a second.
Second.
I think, Tony, you spoke loudest. We'll give it to you. And I'll ask Claudia to call the roll.
Gladly. President Atwater,
Yes.
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Estremera,
Aye.
Director Palmer,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Yes.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Excellent. Resolution passes.
Great. We'll move on to agenda item 8, staff reports and announcements. 8A is general counsel's report. Josh, you have
Thank you,
anything?
President Atwater. My written reports in the packet, just wanted to highlight 2 things. The first is the AB 361 30-day findings. So due to the way the Thursdays fell the last couple of months, we were having to do a couple of special meetings. So appreciate the board doing that. The good news is that with February being a shorter month, that should not be an issue. And we are targeting our regular meeting date, February 17th for that special meeting. And that will get us through to the March regular meeting as well. The other thing I wanted to note is, the staff is still evaluating hybrid meetings, to have some in-person attendance as well as those who wish to attend remotely. However, the Sacramento County Health Officer issued an order earlier this month suspending all in-person meetings by Brown Act bodies in the county until further notice. We'll continue to monitor that. If and when that order is lifted, bring back potential options for hybrid meetings. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions of Josh? I don't see any. Let's move on to the treasurer's report. Katana?
Yes, hi. This report is actually now, we're reporting for a few months behind. So if you can I see it up? So the last time we reported, we're now reporting every 2 months. And so when we last talked to you, we were in November. So the November numbers for our cash ending balances were about $1,279,474. After receiving some payments, some receipts from DCO and paying several bills, we were left with, and returning the original $800,000 to the member agencies, we were left with $396,010. And so, and right after that, we did receive a few more receivables from the DCA. And so we ended up around $1.6 million at the end of, right after December. We continue to pay our bills and actively work with the DCA office to make sure that we meet their demands. We do track appropriations, budget versus actuals, and we do show from our books, again, we are the end, not the beginning of the ledger. We show that the variance of $2 million behind budget, and that's really just a timing issue on our part. But I do also want to mention that if you look at that report, we are still at $23.5 million in budget. So once you did pass your budget today, so we will add that. So those numbers will reflect in the next report. We will now add those additional dollars you just approved. So our budget will also be showing reflective of the payments that you approved today. That's my report, and we continue to present this report to you. We can always do monthly, but at this time we're presenting it every couple of months. And so it is a little delayed from where we are, but they're not drastic changes. We always have between $400,000 to that $500,000 at the end of the month as we anticipate expenses and paying bills out. That's my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the board? I don't see any hands raised. If not, let's move on to 8C and Carrie Putnam giving the DWR's environmental manager report.
Thank you, President Atwater and members of the board. Just a couple of things to highlight in my board report. One of them is that we are continuing to move forward with our development of the draft environmental impact report with plans to release it middle of this year. I'm thinking probably around June, but we're still working on the details of that document. And then I also wanted to mention that since our last meeting, we did have a meeting related to the community benefits program where we had a case study workshop. So three people who have been engaged in similar efforts to develop and implement community benefits programs talked to interested members of the public about those programs and lessons learned. And that's part of our continuing effort to develop a framework for the community benefits program to include in the EIR. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Great. Quickly, does anybody raise their hand? I'm trying to. Any questions from the members of the board? I don't see any. Thank you so much for that excellent short report. Moving on to 8D, any verbal reports by the members of the board or the general manager? Sarah, go ahead.
Well, so that we can at some point really meet together. That would be nice. This is something that my son-in-law gave me. It says, "Thanks, science." So yeah, so get vaccinated, folks. Stop messing around. Okay, there you go.
Okay, good pep talk. Yeah. In this day and age, it's get your booster shot, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
We've got just about everybody in our agency. I think we have about 4 or 5 holdouts still, but everybody else in the agency has been vaccinated and boosted.
All right, appreciate that. Moving on to future agenda items. Any requests from members of the board for? Okay, then we're ready to adjourn.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you all, and very productive meeting.